everyone, and today we are going to talk about the relationship between the atherosclerosis and the ischemic heart disease. And here's the content we are going to discuss now. And let's watch the YouTube video to know more about the basic concept of this disease.
This animation will show how atherosclerosis develops in the heart. Forward the animation. Atherosclerosis is the process by which arteries become gradually narrowed and hardened. If this happens in the arteries that supply the heart, it causes coronary heart disease. This can lead to chest pain called angina and eventually a heart attack. The network of blood vessels that branch over the surface of the heart are called the coronary arteries. Atherosclerosis can happen in any part of the coronary arteries. The coronary arteries supply the heart with blood. Over years, fatty deposits in the blood can build up and form a plaque or atheroma on the artery wall. This can prevent the heart muscle from getting the blood and the oxygen supply that it needs. This tends to happen during physical exertion or when angry or stressed. It causes a heavy or tight chest pain called angina. Afterwards, the pain goes away. If the plaque continues to grow, the risk of having a heart attack, where the blood supply to the heart is completely cut off, rises. This is the end of the animation.
Okay, let me talk about the topic of interest. Since the phenomenon is very serious, there are nearly 4,000 people dies every year, and around 9 individuals dies every day. And this is very commonly seen in Hong Kong, and also it is very difficult to notice. So let me talk about the risk factors. There are 4 main risk factors are the obesity, tobacco smoke, the male gender, and the increasing age. Next, let me talk about the etiology. There are 3 main causes, and the most common cause is the atherosclerosis. The cholesterol will stick on the arterial walls and restrict the blood flow. And the second cause is the blood clotting, and it will block the artery and cause heart attack. And the least common cause is the coronary artery pain, and it tightens the arterial muscle and decrease the blood flow. Now let me talk about the development of ischemia from the atherosclerosis. Due to the blockage of arteries, there is limitation of blood flow inside the arteries, and it is the ischemia to heart cells. The lack of oxygen to cell causing the heart muscles damage, and heart muscle will die due to insufficient oxygen. As there is scar formations, and it might impair the heart muscles. Okay, so it is the overview of atherosclerosis. As you can see, there are blockage of cells. There are accumulation of cells in the lumen of artery, and it will be discussed later further. And here is some mechanism of atherosclerosis. As we know, the functions of endothelium cells are basically 2. Barriers between stuff in the blood and the vessel wall, it acts as a barrier. And secondly, it secretes protein that prevent clotting and keep the blood flow, in a laminar flow. And however, there are 2 irritants for such dysfunction of arteries. There are LDLs, that is the bad cholesterol and fats. And lastly is the toxin from cigarette smoking. If you smoke too much, and then you get toxins, and which dysfunctions the arterial wall. And here are the 3 concepts of mechanism of atherosclerosis. The first one is the deposition of bad cholesterol, as I've mentioned before, and the second one is the smooth muscle cells. That is the layer under the endothelium endothelium. And lastly is the calcium crystal formation. We'll talk about it later.
Now let me introduce the first mechanism, depositions of bad cholesterol. Because of the bad cholesterol collects under the endotheliums, and it becomes long deposits of fatty tissue, which we call it the fatty streak. And the bad cholesterol oxidize and change their structures and trigger the immune system. And there is appears of monocytes. And monocytes become converted to macrophages to engulf the bad cholesterol. And because macrophages engulf too much cholesterol and it is full of it, and it's die and deposits on the endothelium cell and become the foam cells, causing the foam cells formations. And but at the same time, it's still saturated with the bad cholesterol. And because of many and more foam cells accumulate on the endotheliums, and we call it plaque. And it will narrow the lumen of vessels, causing damage to endothelium cells. And it is the deposition of bad cholesterol.
And the second mechanism is the smooth muscle cells, which is a layer under the endothelium cells. And the migration of the smooth muscles will out of the vessel layer into the fatty plaque, and it secretes a protein, we call it fibrous cap, which covers up the plaque and prevents the thrombogenic plaque to release into the blood. And it gives protection and support to the plaque, which becomes more tough. And the third one is the calcium crystal formation. The foam cells release signals after they die, and the calcium crystals deposit under the plaque and between the gaps and bulge into the blood. And calcium, as we know, properties of the calcium is tough, and which hardens our arteries, and we call it atherosclerosis. And why it's cause myocardial infarction is when the atherosclerosis happens in our coronary arteries and the death of heart tissues due to lack of oxygen. One of the reasons is because the plaque has ruptured and the thrombogenic material exposed to the blood and cause thrombosis, and the blood clots in the middle of the coronary arteries. And it restricts the flow of the blood occluding the arteries because the lumen has restricted. Myocardial infarction is irreversible damage to heart tissue when the whole part of heart muscles persists more than 20 minutes for lacking of oxygen, and the heart muscle will finally die.
The major signs and symptoms is the chest pain, and the minor ones are neck or jaw pain, shoulder or arm pain, a fast heartbeat, shortness of breath when you are physically active, nausea and vomiting, sweating, and also fatigue.
Let's come to our current therapeutic measures. The first one is the cholesterol medication. It is the aggressively lowering the low density lipoprotein cholesterol, and it can slow, stop, or even reverse the building up of the fatty deposit in the arteries. And by boosting the high-density lipoprotein cholesterol, the good cholesterol may help too. And for example, the statins and the fibers help stabilizing the lining of the heart arteries and protect the atherosclerosis. And the aspirin will reduce the risk of the myocardial infarction in patients with unstable angina and after recovery from the myocardial infarction. And then the second one is the bypass surgery. The doctor may create a graft bypassing using the vessel from the other part of the body or the tube made of the synthetic fabric, and this allows the blood to flow around the blocked or the narrowed artery.
So there may be some research need in the future. For example, the development of new lipid-lowering drugs. That means some drugs that can lower the bad cholesterol content in your blood, and pharmacological means to address novel mechanistic concepts of vessel wall damage. That means some drugs or some medications that can recover the vessel wall damage. And lastly, maybe some regenerative medicine. That means when your blood, when the heart muscle are damaged, there may be some regenerative medicine, because the heart is permanent cell, which means they cannot be regenerated and there can only be scar formation. So if we can regenerate heart muscle, then it would be a very good research findings in the future.
And here's come to the end of our presentation. And we have one thing to remind you: please take good care of your blood vessel. And this is our reference list.
Thank you.